Hi, this is Ty Bennett, the author of The Power of Influence, and today I'm going to answer another question for you. I've been getting a lot of questions on how do you make your introduction really attract your audience? How do you set yourself up to succeed with the introduction as you're giving a speech or giving a presentation? If someone's introducing you, I've got some tips that I want to share to make that introduction really work. Before I do that, I have to share with you my worst experience with an introduction. I had a total disaster when it came to an introduction. Not too long ago, I had a chance to speak for Subway, and the person who was introducing me was somebody who I knew. And he asked me if he could personalize my introduction. I said, sure. I didn't really think much about it. Well, here was the problem. As he stood up to introduce me, he started to talk about my book. Now, when I speak on my book, The Power of Influence, I start my speech with a story about Howard Schultz, the chairman and CEO of Starbucks. And that story makes a point that we're all in the people business. So this man who's introducing me literally opens my book and says, my favorite part of Ty's book is the story about Howard Schultz, and he retells the story and makes the point. So the first 5 minutes of my speech he just gave in my introduction, and I am like dumbfounded. I don't know what to do. It was a disaster. Right after he makes that point, he says, welcome, Ty Bennett, and I'm walking up on stage. It was just a total disaster. And it taught me a great lesson that I need to be clear on what my introduction is so that I set myself up for success instead of setting myself up for failure. So I don't want to leave you hanging the rest of the story. How did I deal with that? Well, I was really kind of off. I didn't know what to do, and so I used an old trick that comedians use. I used what's called a callback. And there was something that was said earlier in the dinner presentation that I could make a joke out of. And so I used that to call back, and we kind of laughed a little bit. It made a connection with the audience, but really I was trying to get my bearings. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so I used that, I got a little laugh, and then I just kind of added on the point I picked up from where he left off, and I just said, yeah, that's really true. We're all in the people business, and just kind of took on from there. And so I pretty much cut out the first 5 minutes of my speech and just picked up from there and started moving on. It felt awkward for a minute, but then I just pushed through and it turned out to be a great speech. In fact, the review that they sent me was that I was the best speaker they've ever hired. So somehow I worked through it. I'm not really sure how, but it worked out. So I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to make sure that you have a great introduction. So let me give you 4 tips on how to make your introduction great. Number 1 is to make it about the audience. Now, this is a recurring theme that you hear from me over and over and over again. Your focus has to be on the audience. It doesn't need to be about you. It needs to be about them. So all I'm saying here is just change the language a little bit to make it apply to the audience so that they feel like there's something in it for them and it's not just all about you. Oh, I'm so great. Let me just give you an example how I do that. When I speak on the power of influence, I'm sharing tools and ideas, strategies that are going to help you increase your influence. Well, that's maybe for sales or leadership groups. And so my introduction usually goes, our next speaker, Ty Bennett, is the author of The Power of Influence. And using the strategies that he's going to teach you to increase your influence, Ty was able to build a $20 million business while still in his 20s. Now, did you see that little twist? I took my credentials, and instead of just making them all about me, I made it about the audience a little bit, and so that they could understand how this applies to them. So number 1 tip is to make it about them. Use your introduction to show the audience that your speech is really geared towards them. The second tip is to share your credentials. But when you share your credentials, there's a couple mistakes people use. Number 1 is they list every credential they've ever had. I mean, the list is just on and on and on, and you pretty much lost everybody by that point. You don't need a 10-minute introduction for a 20-minute speech. You need just 1 or 2, a couple key relevant credentials, and that's the key word, relevant. You know, if I speak on leadership, then my credentials should be geared towards leadership. The book that I wrote, the business that I built, key credentials that people can relate to and they can go, wow, I should listen to him on this topic. I don't need to give credentials that would apply to teamwork or to customer service or to anything else unless that's the topic that I'm speaking on. So make sure that the list is short and that they're relevant. Okay, the third tip or piece of advice is to use a connection tool. connect with your audience in some way, and I have 2 ideas for you here. Number 1 is you may make a promise on what they're going to get out of the session. A promise like you're going to come away with. And that makes them connect. If that's the right kind of promise, they're going to go, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And so they're going to be engaged. They're going to lean forward. They're going to connect with you from the get-go. The other way you could use that is if you're funny. If you're a funny speaker and your presentation is funny, throw a funny line into your introduction. And this will serve 2 purposes. Number 1, it will let them know that this is going to be a funny presentation and that to expect that and to be open to it. But number 2, it's going to allow you to assess the audience. Because if you're sitting backstage or offstage waiting to come on and they have that funny line in your introduction, you can judge how well that audience received that line. Did they laugh? Did they laugh hard? Are they open to it? Are they going to be a tough audience? You can get a feel for them a little bit in that way, and so you can use it as a judge to be able to see how your audience is responding. Okay, so first tip is to make it about them. Second tip is to use short and relevant credentials. Third tip is to use a connection tool. And the fourth tip, the fourth thing that you want to do to make sure that your introduction sets you up to win, not to fail, is to set up a callback. Now, a callback is where you call back to something and you can make a point, usually a funny point, and I'll give you an example of this. There's a speaker that I've watched that I think has been an amazing speaker, is a man named Larry Winget. And Larry Winget has a pretty brash, pretty funny personality, and his introduction literally has been for years, and our next speaker is Larry Winget. That's it. He doesn't give any of the other things that I already talked about. The reason he doesn't is because he uses that as a callback. Later in his speech, he says, "Did you like my introduction? Just here's Larry Winget?" He said, that's not your typical introduction. You know, these speakers, they usually go on and on and on about how great they are, and he makes this funny joke about it, and he uses that as a callback, and it really sets up a really funny part of his speech. So you could set up a callback by saying something particular that you want to call back to, or setting up a joke of some sort in your introduction. And that's another tip that you can use to make sure your introduction really helps you succeed and helps you win in your presentation. Now, I hope you don't have an experience like I did, but if you'll use those 4 tips, you're going to make sure that your introduction really attracts your audience, connects you to them, so that you're set up on a sure foundation to be able to give and deliver an incredible speech. Make sure that you, number 1, make it about them. Number 2, use short and relevant credentials. Number 3, use a connection tool, a promise or a funny line. And number 4, that if you want to, you can set up a callback based off of your introduction. I hope that helps. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.